What if your grandfather's life story disappeared forever? No photos, no recording, no voice, just gone. Every day, thousands of stories, pieces of human history vanish, unheard, unrecorded, erased. Why is this happening? What can we do to stop it? For me, this isn't just a fear, it's personal. When I was 14, I spent the summer working for my grandfather. He ran a residential appraisal business, and every day I got to watch a true professional up close. That summer changed my life. It was one of the big reasons that I got into business in the first place, and that I've always wanted to kind of be an entrepreneur or a leader. When he passed away a few years ago, I realized that I'd missed something. I'd never asked him about his journey, the challenges he faced, how he overcame them, or the lessons that he learned. I hadn't asked him enough questions. When people that you love pass away, it's very common, or at least for me it is, to miss their hugs, to miss being close to them, to wish you could just pick up the phone and make a phone call. And that was the case for my grandfather. There's been a lot of times when I've had business things pop up where I've wished I could just call and ask him and pick his brain, but he's not there. And all the stories that I could have heard from him, I now don't have the opportunity to get, or so I thought. You see, I thought those stories were gone forever, but then something incredible happened. About a week after his funeral, his daughter, my aunt, sent me a flash drive with a note. On it were a bunch of photos and a note written from her about what it was. But most incredibly were recordings of interviews that she had done with him. Um, for the first time, I got to hear my grandfather's voice tell me stories of how his childhood was and how his father ran his business. His father was an upholsterer.
Dad and Mom ended up buying a house on 12th and Esplanade. And they bought it because it was an upstairs, downstairs, it was two-story. And on the first floor was a barber shop. It had been a barber shop, part of it. And so they bought that and lived upstairs. Dad had his shop on the first floor.
Right before World War II, he fell down an elevator shaft and broke his arm and ended up not having to go to World War II because of it, not getting drafted because of it. These are stories I didn't know and that I never would have known had my aunt not had the flash drive. I mean, this flash drive wasn't just to preserve facts; it was preserving chunks of our story, of a legacy that I didn't even know I was a part of until I heard his voice again. It was quite the blessing. I teared up like crazy, and it's a treasure. This flash drive is a treasure for me, and that's the thing. The stories aren't just about the past; they shape who we become. That impact of Chuck Mesmer Appraisal here, the professional way that he would reach out to people and command respect by showing respect was wild to me. The idea that you could have an office in the basement is something that, in a way, I feel like connects me to him now. We have a problem in today's modern digital society. How many times have you taken a ton of pictures and then from your phone and then you posted them on Facebook or Instagram thinking that, yeah, it's a good place to save them. I'll always have them there. What happens if Facebook disappeared tomorrow? How many pictures would you lose? Nobody keeps photo albums anymore. No one keeps tangible physical pictures really, except for like, school photos that you might get. But even then, they usually send you like a disc or something, right? Family pictures. A lot of times they'll just give you a disc for the prints, or they'll have you pay way too much there, and then you end up taking it with you, the disc with you, so that you can go to Walgreens or wherever and get prints made. And then you never make it. So these are physical pieces of our past, of memories, collections of things that are now digital, right? And what would happen if your phone was just erased and you didn't back it up to the cloud? You know what I mean? So we're losing some very important pieces of history, or we have the potential to lose them. It's a tangible loss because these are things that contain literal everyday wisdom, skills, personal perspectives. It's all disappearing with an aging generation. It's not just about losing these pictures, but like by being so distracted by media and things like that, and not slowing down to ask questions of our elders or just talk to them to get to know their story, you're losing that. When my grandmother came to visit, I recently learned that she worked for a place called the Rock Island Arsenal, which I already knew about. What I didn't know is that she actually worked for the government and was one of the first women to learn how to do a certain thing and then trained people. And it had a huge, huge part in, I believe it was the Manhattan Project. I mean, we're talking some really high security level clearance that she had. I had no idea. My grandma was practically a spy. No, I'm kidding. It wasn't that far. But I mean, that's the kind of thing that I wouldn't have known had I not gone to lunch with her and checked that out. But then you think about skills that are lost. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's a story, and you should look it up. It's very, very interesting. Disney forgot how to animate. They used to do all their hand animations, and there was a team, a dream team of animators who created really innovative ways to animate. Snow White is a great example. They used panes of glass and zoomed the camera through the panes of glass to show different layers and make a 3D effect. Really incredible things, painted pieces of glass, and then they animated on top of that. Just wild stuff, right? Well, because of the rise of digital animation and Disney going with Disney Animation Studios more and not doing the regular animation, when they wanted to animate something, they had to call old animators that were out of retirement, and they realized people were dying off. These are skills that are being lost because you're not teaching them to the next generation. There was a Vanishing Voices report from 2023 from the Global Oral History Alliance. And it said that every day, thousands of unique narratives vanish globally. Think about that. Unique narratives, pieces of history all around the globe. According to UNESCO, one language dies every 14 days. How wild is that? That's full pieces of history that are just vanishing. It goes beyond personal loss. We're talking about cultural erasure here. It's a wider ripple effect. Individual forgotten stories basically have the potential to erode community identity, right? Collective memory, right? That's how stories getting passed on. The essentially lore is what it is. What it comes down to is this: individual forgotten stories erode community identity and collective memory. Sure, we have the entire history of the world on the internet, but God forbid something happen and one of the four lines that connects the world to the internet gets cut and irreparably damaged, how much are we going to lose? And then if you saw my last video about how history is being erased because they're going in and wanting to censure a lot of what's in the National Museum and taught in school, that sort of thing, where's this stuff going to go? People have to fight to protect the endangered narratives. There's a lot of languages that are without written records. There's traditional crafting techniques that are gone. Pre-internet subcultures that have just died off. What it all comes down to is that there's a domino effect. One forgotten story can lead to a cascade of lost connections and historical understanding. They say that history is the best teacher or the best indicator of future, right? You can't learn from your mistakes of the past if you don't know what that past is. You're doomed to repeat those failures and those mistakes. And that's really scary because in some cases, it's not just censorship, it's just not asking the right questions, not recording the right things. So the real question is, why are we losing them? And I hinted at this earlier, but I think there's a lot of modern barriers, if you will. There's a digital deluge. Okay, so what I mean by that is we are so overwhelmed by current events and by apps and by news. Basically, what happens is this all comes in, and so historical narratives get drowned out. What I mean by that is, how many times have you gone to dinner and everybody has their phone out? Or how many times have you gone to visit family and you're sitting around the couch, and even though the TV's on, or you got together for a football game, even, or if you're here in America, or whatever, the phones are out, right? The phones, which are meant to connect us and give us information, just suck our attention away. We could be having conversations, and we're losing important social skills too. Like there's a huge problem with the workforce of today that's going into the workforce, and that is that they don't have interpersonal skills, because part of it could be because COVID. A lot of those skills were being developed when COVID happened and everybody had to separate, right? So it's like a huge issue when basic small talk is not easy, right? When the confidence to just carry on a conversation is a problem, when you don't have that, that's a major problem. Everybody's socially awkward, and people have always been socially awkward. But the idea that it's to a point where we're not communicating with our own family, where we're not asking questions that we could ask, or trying to get to know our family story or our friend's story, right? You have a best friend. Everybody has a best friend or a very close family member. How much of their backstory do you actually know? Like, if you're married, you probably know your spouse's backstory, a little bit of their history, but I live with my mother-in-law. She lives with us. She lives here. We take care of her. She helps take care of us. She's a great person to live with. But even now, we still are sitting around playing cards some nights, and we'll have her tell us a story about what it was like when she was a kid, or what it was like with her sisters or her mom, because these are things that you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know unless you ask. So I guess that's really what it comes down to is there's a lack of accessible tools. Yes, for recording it. So traditional methods of recording oral history archives, it can be daunting. It can be too exclusive. The recording of my grandfather was done on a digital recorder, right? You can still get those, by the way. But we all have a cell phone, right? So and almost every one of them comes with a voice recording app. So you can literally just set it down and start talking, and you'd be amazed at what you capture. Now, you may do nothing with that, but sometimes having that is huge. I'll be honest with you. Part of the reason that I do YouTube and do video content in general is so that my kids, when I'm long gone, hopefully will have something on the internet that they can see of me and that they can remember and hear my stories and see my unique perspective and kind of get a sense of who I was when they're ready for that. Because they're not now, they're kids. But someday maybe they'll want to know what my perspective was. And maybe that's a little arrogant. Maybe it's legacy. But the reality is I don't want to be forgotten. Do you? I mean, here's something strange. In the age of smartphones and endless content, why are we still losing so much of our history? The truth is, it's never been easier to record. It's never been easier to record, but it's easier to record a TikTok than it is to sit down and capture your grandmother or your brother's life story. That's a problem. I mean, that's really the way to look at this. Um, there's so much content out there, but you'd rather do a selfie than sit down and talk to somebody. You'd rather consume selfies and little things like that. So that's a problem. But there's a lot of power in preservation. You can take small actions that have a really, really big impact. So, what do I mean by that? Interview your family elders. Just sit down and talk to them. Record local histories. Go around and do like a walking tour of your downtown, right? Because God forbid a tornado comes and wipes half of it away. I say that because I live in a town that has had an EF3 tornado come through and wipe half the town away. Use your smartphone's video and audio to preserve a little bit of history. And even if you just keep that on your Google Drive or on your Apple storage or whatever, it's still there. It exists. And even though that's digital, fine, save it to a computer and then save it on a flash drive because God knows I'm grateful that happened. It's also a good idea to try and become involved in successful initiatives. So, for example, most towns have a town museum, which has community archives and history projects and things like that. So, helping them modernize their digital footprint, their digital collection, or helping them do that, volunteering your time, that's a great way to help with the community, to be more engaged in the community and volunteer your services. I mean, it really does have kind of a reciprocal benefit. It's not just about preserving history, but it fosters connection and empathy across generations. It makes people realize that you're not the first one to go through these things, and not just like, oh, it's not so bad, everybody deals with this, but like to see that some of the struggles you had are very similar to the ones that your grandparents had or their friends or their community had. That's huge. We have an opportunity to reclaim our connective story. I'm going to give you a challenge here. What unique story can you save from vanishing today? That's not a rhetorical question. I actually want you to think about it. Let me ask you, if you had a flash drive with someone's life story on it, who would you want it to be? Don't wait. Ask questions, hit record, and preserve the legacy. One day, somebody that you love will be very grateful that you did. Thousands of human stories are disappearing every day. Unheard, unrecorded, just lost forever. I'm hoping that this video helps you realize that it's not just memories, it's legacy and identity that you have the potential to preserve. So next time you want to record a TikTok, instead of jumping on the latest trend, or you want to record a short or even just a regular video, maybe do something that matters. Thanks for tuning in to Steve-isms with Steven. If you like that video, definitely check out this one here. I think you'll really appreciate it. And until next time, dig deep, my friends.